Hello and welcome to Camp Xbox. Video games have those persistent franchises that seem to have entry after entry, spin-off after spin-off, and one of those is Dynasty Warriors, a long-running franchise that I have never gotten into because the number of games was daunting, but I've always wanted to try them. So why not start with its first foray on the Xbox with Dynasty Warriors 3. I played through it recently and I'll give you some history along with a review. All footage was captured off of an original Xbox, and I want to thank my YouTube channel members for their support. But let's go ahead and hop into this one. Koei had been in the gaming industry for a long time by the late 90s, most famous for historical strategy games, but their in-house team, Omega Force, was about to change that. In 1997, they would release Dynasty Warriors, a PlayStation fighting game based on the Chinese historical fiction novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms. This game would go on to review well and would start a franchise, but it would go on to be nothing like this first entry. In 2000, the series would spin off in Japan and receive a subtitle, but in America, we would just get Dynasty Warriors 2, a hack-and-slash action game with a real-time battlefield. It was completely different from the first game, but still did fairly well as a launch title for the PlayStation 2 in North America. It was a huge war strategy game, but had a simple twist of just being pure action. The game sold just under 1 million copies worldwide, meaning it was time for it to go into production for a third entry. You have to think that the turnaround time here was insane. It was just a little over a year between the PS2 release of 2 and 3, so the style was going to be retained, but it would come with upgrades like multiplayer and more characters. I think the turnaround was so fast that not many magazines or websites really went into the development of this one. It came out fast for the PS2 in late 2001, and then there were talks about an Xbox port, which would take a year to reach the console. It would release in Japan in September of 2002, and then in North America on November 26, 2002, and Europe the following month. I personally had never touched a Dynasty Warriors before. I've played games like it, but the franchise has always seemed daunting to me. There were so many entries and I had nowhere to really start. Since I plan on reviewing every Xbox game, I feel like the best place to start would be the first one on Xbox. So I picked this up and played quite a bit of it. I will say, since I am no expert on the franchise, my opinions might stray from what is considered the normal of the series. It might be an outsider's view, but then again, I'm not sure. I could just be on point with things that I'm saying, but I am excited to discuss with all of you in the comments. But let's go ahead and get into this review, and let's start out with the plot.
Lord, please wait! Now is not the time to attack Wu! We must join with them to attack Cao Cao!
Never! I will destroy Wu! Who cares about Cao Cao? I shall never forgive them. Never!
Dynasty Warriors 3 is heavily based on the novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms, a major Chinese work written in the 14th century following ancient Chinese battles. It's historical fiction, though, and does dramatize characters and add storytelling, but weaves it with real people and battles. It's a massive book with tons of characters, and it is full of depth. I cannot claim that I've ever read it, and I only knew of its existence passingly, and that's about it. Yet while doing this review, I looked into it more, and it seems like an excellent basis for a game. Great historical wars with a wide swath of characters, and it would work well for an epic action game. Here you can choose many characters from the Three Kingdoms across China. You follow their famous battles, meaning everyone has a different layout of stages you go through. It gives a sense of variety to everyone you pick, which is fantastic. Seeing new battles with people you pick along the way, with new cutscenes, is a part of the reason that such a simple game is replayable. Not only that, but seeing battles from new perspectives and new voice actors, it's part of the fun to see all of the angles of things you've seen, removing some of that repetitiveness that a game like this could have. Yet I did not know anything about the story while playing. I don't know the book or most of these battles, so to me, the cutscenes just felt disjointed. I felt like a through line for the plot just wasn't quite there. Yeah, it makes sense whenever you are just going around playing significant wars across tons of years. Characters pop up, say some lines, and then you're into the fight. I like the background for each battle that you can read in the menus. These do help, and I had a lot of fun going through these and learning about the history. I think that's more of a talking point based on my taste, that I would prefer more historical context over exaggerated characters and cutscenes that don't seem to connect. Though I don't think it's a huge problem, and these cutscenes only help you understand where they're going. I would have preferred a larger interconnected plot, but what's here is fine, and I do think it works in service of the gameplay.
An enemy officer has fallen to my blade.
You haven't beaten me yet!
This is an action hack-and-slash game, and as far as core gameplay goes, it's easy to understand. The main modes of Muso and Free Mode play similarly, but Muso is closer to a story mode, having you follow a character across multiple battles. And this is where the bulk of your gameplay options come from. You move from stage to stage, and all can vary in size, but most are large battlefields. Generally, this will come with the goal of you taking out a certain leader. In each battlefield, you have multiple troops, and you are going to want to take out generals to make your army take over more space and lead to a stronger force against the enemy. It's general military planning, but it's done in such a simplistic fashion that it becomes more palatable over something that might be more tactical. You don't control masses of troops or make military plans. You just lead one of your team's characters and you kill soldiers as well as generals. You use your unique weapons and you slash through hordes of enemies. The more you kill, the more your army can advance to victory. It's easy to understand, just like the combat. You use a mix of two buttons to hit the enemies, which can lead to simple hits and combos that can vary from character to character depending on stats like speed, damage, and what type of weapon you might have. You also have a meter that fills up, and once that's full, it makes for an unblockable move. The combat is excellent, but I know that sounds odd since this game does not have a vast, intricate combo system or fighting system. You can mash buttons here, and I think you'd be fine. Yet there's something here that is inherently relaxing and fun. The main soldiers you fight are weak, and moving down wide arrays of enemies feels incredible. There's a smoothness to it that makes it work, and when you swap out characters, everyone plays a little differently, so it's not tiring to replay these over and over. However, you will know exactly what you need to do. I would not say it is a mindless game. You will easily get overwhelmed. Though soldiers might be weak, you fight too many of them and you will be overwhelmed. And that's what this meter is for. This is your safety card to get out of dangerous combos or generals' harder hitting attacks. These fights are a lot tougher, but still manageable. The combat has this simplicity that I found entrancing, and these sometimes 90-minute long battles went by in a breeze because of the attacks you lay on hundreds of soldiers. What I like is how well this game incentivizes doing things outside of the main goal. Some of these missions you could just rush down the fastest path to the general and win. Yet part of bringing up your stats is killing generals. You can find pickups in breakable objects scattered around the battlefield, but you're more likely to get stat upgrade drops from generals. You kill them and you get an attack up, defense up, and more. This is the best way to get your character stronger, and I love that this makes you want to clear the whole battlefield in order to grow. Not only that, but you just level them up by playing, or you can level up things like how many bodyguards you have at one time to protect you. You don't have to do this in the story mode either. They have a free mode where you can take them into any battle and you can just level them up, and this freely transfers between all of your game modes. So if you hit a hard spot in the story, you can level them up in free mode to make it easier, with an addition of getting new weapons with stats and accessories to make you stronger. Dynasty Warriors, to me, balances simple gameplay with a surprisingly in-depth set of RPG elements, and with so many characters, This is the hook that keeps you going. It's so fun to level up all your characters and get as far as you can with each of them, making something that could be misconstrued as mindless and making it worthwhile. So it matches great gameplay with great progression. Now, I do think the gameplay is really fun, but I do have some issues, which I hope are improved as the series goes on. For one, I cannot stand the camera. This game does not allow for free camera movement, and this makes fights messy, and it makes it a bit hard to track major enemies when they fly off screen. You can reset the camera behind you, where you can just hit the left trigger, but I found it to be disorienting, and it would be easier just to move the camera by myself. Sometimes it's not a big deal, but I found it a bit cumbersome. Not only that, but I found there was too much dead space in the game. Some battlefields are gigantic, but sometimes there will be large areas with no details or enemies, and I found that to just give the game considerable downtime in the middle of excellent action. You traverse these empty maps slowly till you reach a fight, and I found that a little tedious, though I think that's more of an issue in some stages rather than the game overall. On a final note for modes, this game has a challenge mode where you can do things like defeat 100 enemies in the fastest time. It's a nice additional mode, but definitely not a big part of the experience. I do love that there is multiplayer here, where you can play stages in co-op together, and any game with someone else would be a blast. And also there's a one-on-one fighting mode, and I think that's a great way to maintain the fighting game roots in this game. I think my thoughts on gameplay overall is that it has issues, but it doesn't hold back a fun playing game. The action is fast and large scale, and the progression here is awesome. With a huge variety of stages and characters, it feels like content that will keep you around for a long time, and it's fun while doing it. I find that the visuals in Dynasty Warriors 3 are the weakest element of the game. Not that it's outright bad, it's fine for what it is, but there's a lot of weak spots that could be improved upon. For one, the draw distance and fog here are rough. The amount of pop-in can just be awful at times. You could be walking along and so many things like enemies pop out of the blue and from barely far away. So much is obscured by a fogginess that is detrimental to the look. I honestly found this game to resemble a Nintendo 64 game with the way it's pulling off draw distances. And I know it's this way in service of showing a ton of enemies on the screen to ensure that it runs smoothly, but I know the Xbox can handle more draw distance than this. Not being able to see far weakens some of the gameplay in my eyes, and it leads to a muggy looking game. Though there are some merits here, the amount of variety you get in locations is great. You go from battlefields filled with snow, tropical areas, and ones where you travel on boats. You do get a mix of environments. It all doesn't look the same, and you get variety that works with its simple gameplay. Traveling across Asia to see different environments is fun. Though a lot of these areas tend to have some empty areas, there is a good amount of variety in color in the hills and trees, and it makes it stand out. I also found the animations on the characters to be solid, and overall the character design is well done. There's a wide variety of characters with different styles of weapons. It feels like a fighting game with how unique they all look, and it's fun to see all of their animations. It might repeat sometimes, but I found it to still be entertaining to watch. I do think time and detail were put in this game, so I can assume the draw distance issue was just a requirement, yet it's still a detriment to some of the gameplay, and that's why it's the biggest issue here. The most prominent piece of audio is definitely the voice acting here. The English audio is downright awful. Some of the goofiest lines are delivered in the most over-the-top or underdone ways. It's silly to the point where it's lovable in a way. It's just all over the place, but it's so bad in a way that it's funny.
Are you actually asking me to attack my own family?
Don't be so hasty.
Yes. All right then. I accept the position of Grand Commander.
So, this is the end.
I found myself laughing the whole time, and I think there's some merit in that. Yet, this game does offer a Japanese audio mode, which I think equals this out. The sound here is more serious and standard than the English version, and I played this one for a while, and I think if you want something serious, you can get that here. But to be honest with you, I swapped back to the English audio just because I was having a good time listening to it. Yet, it's nice that the option to swap back is there. A piece of the audio that is a bit more annoying is the sound effects. I found that when using a certain character and all of the enemies, they reuse a lot of the same audio. Repeated lines over and over, and if you're in a long match, it's grating. Hitting combos saying the same thing and the same dying gasp from enemies, it's a little brutal on the ears with how repetitive it is. It's easy to tune out at a certain point, but you shouldn't have to tune out any elements. I did, however, enjoy the music. Dynasty Warriors 3 goes for a heavy rock and metal background soundtrack, and they're cheesy, but it's fun. It makes the action soar, especially when guitar solos come pumping in. I think they could have used traditional Chinese music, and that would have been fine, but the rock here gives the game a unique identity. I think it's a great way to keep a tempo along with all of the enemies you're killing. Now, I will say it is very cheesy, and it's nothing that I listen to outside of the game, but when playing the game, I think it works with the game design. Dynasty Warriors 3 had some issues going for it during my playthrough. I found the fog and pop-in to be troublesome and some of the audio to be weak, yet the gameplay was fun enough to keep me coming back and I was enjoying it every time. The simplistic combat is elevated through its leveling system, variety in characters, and many stages. There's something satisfying about the light strategy elements and wiping out hundreds of enemies with a simple combo. It gives you this feeling of wanting to keep on pushing yourself that I really enjoyed. It's the type of game that pushes you to unlock everything, and that gameplay loop supplants itself well, making for something that, despite its flaws, is addictingly fun. On my original Xbox ranking list, where I rank every Xbox game I've reviewed on the channel, this one goes in at number 39 out of the 110 games I've covered. I put it below Mortal Kombat Deception because I feel like Deception has a great variety of modes, with all of its elements that are put together better, but I put this above Transworld Snowboarding because this has a much stronger amount of things to do. This game received mixed and average reviews according to Metacritic, with an average of 70 out of 100. IGN gave it a 6.8, saying that though the core gameplay was fun, there's a lot of issues like audio and graphics holding it back. GameSpot gave it a 7.3, saying that it was all fun, but the Xbox version didn't change enough. In November 2002, official Xbox magazine writer Matt Leone gave it a 7.0, saying that the action was fun but too repetitive, and they thought the graphics were awful. Despite reviews like this, the PS2 version had better reviews with a 78 total. This series was going to continue on strong for both consoles. The PS2 version was a huge hit, selling over 1 million worldwide. I can imagine the Xbox version wasn't as good, though it's hard to find concrete sales numbers for this version. VG Charts says this game only sold 8,000 worldwide, which I feel like is too low, but I'm not too sure. This game is not expensive by any means if it's that rare, though I will say you do not find this game out in the wild often. In all honesty, I feel most people might not even know that an Xbox version of this game exists, and maybe that's why it hasn't risen in price. It feels like a game that would only be on PS2, but no, it came to the Xbox. And this would be another entry in what would become a gigantic franchise. This series has spin-offs and sequels, and I'm excited to go through them. Dynasty Warriors 4 would start production right after this one, with it coming out on Xbox the following year, but we will go over the history of that one when we get there. As far as perception goes now, using the user aggregate website Backlogged as a template, it holds a 3.5 average, with 864 people saying they've played it. Reviews are all over the place, with some hating it, some saying it's fine, but there are people that do love this entry. Looking online, this one seems to be a fan favorite, with those who played it back in the day having a strong connection to it. Let me know in the comments if you played any version of this entry, because I'd love to hear from you and know what your favorite entries in this series are to get a better understanding of Dynasty Warriors. Personally, as it's my first time with this franchise, I'm starting to get a feel for it, and I really enjoy it. But that wraps it up for today. If you enjoyed this review, please leave a like, it helps me on the algorithm. Subscribe to keep up with retro Xbox content, and be sure to check out my second channel, Camp Extras, for more retro content. And I want to give a huge shout out to my YouTube channel members. Thank you so much for your support. You really help out the channel. And I'll see you here next time at Camp Xbox.